Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked to do a little blurb on piecewise functions. So let's talk about piecewise functions for just a second. Now, piecewise functions are always made up of two or more functions, and the first function might live on a certain domain, and the second function might live on another domain, but it's always, again, a combination of more than one function. Let me give you an example of what a piecewise function might look like. Let's make one up. Let's say we have the function f of x equals, let's have our piecewise function consist of three different functions. I'm going to say that my first function is just a simple flat line, and we'll call that line y equals 1. And it will go from, so here's your y equals. So y equals 1, but only from negative infinity up to x equals negative 1. So this function will live when x is when x is less than or equal to negative 1. So there's the domain of the first function. All right, let's let our second function be a little bit more interesting. How about x squared? And x squared, let's say x squared lives in between x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 2. So my domain is going to be greater than 1, yet less than or equal to positive 2. Now, this domain takes care of the negative 1. Let me just add my little negative sign there. This domain takes care of the negative 1. This domain will not include negative 1 because negative 1 lives here. All right, negative 1 doesn't live here. This domain goes all the way back to negative 1, but not actually including negative 1. And again, this domain includes just x equals negative 1 to positive 2. All right, let's finish that off with one more function. And let's say that this function is another flat line. How about y equals 4? So I have three functions so far. Y equals 1. I'm writing f of x, but f of x is another way of saying y. Y equals x squared, and y equals 4. And let's say that the flat line y equals 4 goes off into positive infinity. So I'm just going to say this function only exists when x is greater than, but not equal to, 2. Now that I've got my function and my domains listed out, let's go ahead and graph this. First function is just a flat line, y equals 1. So on the y-axis, it's going to come up 1 unit. And again, it only goes from negative infinity up to negative 1. So when x equals negative 1, this function ceases to exist. All right, so I'm going to draw a solid dot because it can equal negative 1. And this is just a flat line that goes off to negative infinity. Now, the second function was x squared, and x squared only exists from x equals negative 1 to x equals positive 2. All right, now it's a parabola, so it's going to be a curve. It just so happens y equals x squared, just a little bit of a graphing tip for you. If you go over 1 from the vertex, you must go up 1 squared. So I've got a point right there. If you go over 2, you must go up 2 squared. So 2 squared is 4. All right, so I've got another point right here. Now, I've got enough information to go ahead and graph that. Now, I'm going to make a solid dot because the parabola does include positive 2 in its domain. So, nice big solid dot here at x equals positive 2. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my curve. So I've got my parabola curve, Normally the parabola would continue up like this, and then it would continue on past here, but since the domain doesn't exist there, the parabola will not continue. Now, the last function was y equals 4, or you could say f of x equals 4, and that function only exists when x is greater than 2. All right, now, I think that'll do it. We ready for an extreme close-up? All right, here we go. I'm mounting the camera, getting interesting here, just to make sure you can see all of this stuff that I've written. Okay, see, we even have the sun right here. Who wouldn't want to film without some sunshine? Sorry about that. All right, I hope that helps you out. If you have any other questions or anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. Or it was a student of mine, so you're free to email me. If you are not a student of mine and you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. As math students, I really appreciate the hard work that you're going through. I appreciate everything that you're doing. Remember, confusion and discouragement is okay, because that means you're trying. If you keep trying, you're going to get it figured out. So, keep it up. See you later. Have a nice night.